Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second public meeting here to discuss the lead and copper rule revisions. My name is Richard Lynn. I'm the Interim Director for the Department of Public Works. We have a great wealth of information that we're going to be sharing with you all today, so thank you to all the residents and community members for coming out. We have plenty of staff here that are going to be helpful and answer all the questions you have, and we're going to have a great presentation coming up from two of our leading staff, both with Baltimore City Department of Public Works and Baltimore County's Department of Public Works and Transportation. But without further ado, I'd like to bring up our Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott to provide some opening remarks.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Middle Branch Center. Tonight, we are here at the Lead and Copper Rule Revisions meeting to help the public understand how to identify and use our self-reporting survey to help us identify unknown service material in the Baltimore water system. The Baltimore Service Line Partnership, as you heard, is a collaboration between the Baltimore City Department of Public Works and the Baltimore County Department of Public Works and Transportation to address new federal regulations to modernize our drinking water infrastructure and to really modernize them across the United States of America. So I'll say this again because we've been saying this over and over again. This is not just a Baltimore City or a Baltimore County thing. This is a United States of America thing, and we're thankful, we're very grateful to the President and our partners at EPA for pushing something that quite frankly should have been done a long time ago. We formed the Baltimore Service Line Partnership to comply with the Lead and Copper Rule Revisions, LCRR, that were announced in 2021. We urge all of our residents to complete the Customer Service Line Survey to help the partnership determine their water service line material. High quality drinking water is a top priority, which we know we have here in Baltimore, and our fundamental goal is to provide our customers with the resources and materials needed to navigate and understand the LCRR, how it impacts you, and any action you may need to take. We know that you all have questions, so we brought the experts here to explain this process tonight. I am not the expert, the director is not the expert. We brought the experts, and you're going to hear directly from them. I'm going to turn the mic back over to Acting Director Luna and say thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Scott, for those introductory remarks. And again, too, thank you to the public and everybody for joining us today. We're also broadcasting live on our Facebook page, so that information is being streamed. So we want to thank everybody watching online as well. And without further ado, I'm going to bring up the two leading experts that are helping us through this effort. Paul Sayan, he's our Acting Bureau Head at Baltimore City's Department of Public Works, and Lauren Buckler, she's the Deputy Director for Baltimore County's Public Works Department and Transportation. I think I got that.
Thank you, Director Luna. I think we're going to get slides up. There we go. So thank you, Director Luna, for that introduction. Again, this is a partnership between Baltimore City and Baltimore County. So we're both here to answer questions. We've got staff from both jurisdictions here to answer questions as well. So this is the second of two meetings. Last Monday we were in Randallstown in Baltimore County for the same meeting. So now we're here at a city location to talk about the lead and copper program. So this timeline, as the mayor mentioned, this is a federal program. So the timeline that you see on the screen is for the duration of this federal program. So Baltimore City and Baltimore County have been working with EPA, with MDE, to work through the logistics of this since this rolled out and what we need to do when we need to do it by. So by October 2024 is when we need to report where there are potentially lead pipes. So that's the date that we're driving towards and why we're out here for these public meetings right now, and why you may have gotten flyers in the mail about it, because we have to gather this information by October of this year. So the next one. So what are we looking at here? So the city-county system starts with the reservoirs. So Pretty Boy, Liberty, Loch Raven Reservoir, the rain falls down, it goes into those reservoirs, and then it's piped from there down into the city where it's treated at either Montebello or I'm blanking on the Ashburton. where the water is treated, and then it's piped out to your homes. So Paul's going to get into detail about what happens then when we get between the system and your home and what's private and what's public. But we're talking about the water main after it leaves the treatment plants and the pipes that start getting distributed out to homes and businesses from there. So we've got a video that we're going to play that talks about how you test these pipes.
Across the U.S. Throughout Baltimore and across the U.S., families just like yours are taking immediate action to locate, identify, and report their service line material to ensure it meets current standards. This video will show you how to find your service line and identify the material, complete the self-reporting survey, and upload your photos. First, visit the Baltimore Service Line Partnership website at servicelinepartnership.baltimorecity.gov. Enter your address. If your house number does not appear on the map, the material of your service line is already known to meet current standards. No further action is needed. If a blue dot appears next to your house number, your service line material is unknown. Please continue watching and follow the steps to test your service line and complete the survey. A service line is the pipe connecting your home to the public water main. It carries water from the main into your house and to the fixtures and appliances you use every day. Usually, the service line can be found where it enters your home through the foundation wall in the basement or utility area. Other utility lines may look similar, but the water service line is typically less than 1 inch in diameter and has a shutoff valve near the entry point. The service line coming into your home can be plastic, copper, galvanized, or lead. To identify your service line material, you will need a key or a coin, a magnet, a camera, flashlight, or mobile phone with your phone. Using the key or coin, lightly scratch the service line where it enters the home as close to the wall as possible. Note the pipe color when scratched. It may be copper, orange, silver, gray, or white. Tap the pipe with the coin. Note if the sound you hear is metallic, ringing, or dull. Place a magnet on the pipe and note if it sticks. A plastic pipe will match the pipe surface when scratched. The sound will be dull when tapped. A magnet will not stick. A copper pipe will be copper or orange when scratched. A metallic sound is heard when tapped, and a magnet will not stick. A galvanized pipe will be dull or gray when scratched. A ringing sound is heard when tapped. The magnet will stick. And finally, a lead pipe will reveal a shiny silver or white color. The sound will be dull. A magnet will not stick. Now, take 2 photos, one of the service line where it enters your house, and the other to show results of the scratch and magnet test. You are now ready to complete the survey. Visit servicelinepartnership.baltimorecity.gov or scan the QR code on your screen. Click the link, complete a brief survey about your service line, upload your pictures, click submit, and you are done. For information on reducing potential lead in drinking water in your home, visit the Baltimore Service Line Partnership website.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Just want to say thank you, and for those joining us online. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the lead program. Next slide, please. So what is a service line? So as Lorna mentioned, we have to do this inventory of all of the pipes in our system, from the treatment plant all the way to the face of your house or your building. So the water is conveyed from our treatment plants through water mains, which are usually under the street, and then there's a service line which connects from the pipe that's in the street to your house or to your building. That's what's called a service line. The service line is broken into 2 parts. You have a water meter in the middle there that records how much water is actually being used by the property. From the water main to that water meter, that's maintained by the city of Baltimore. That's a public line. From the water meter to the face of the building is private. That's usually the private property owner's responsibility for maintaining. So again, the service line is broken into two sections, and then what we are focused on right now is on building the inventory for the private portion of that service line. Over the last few decades, the Department of Public Works has had an active program of replacing lead pipe on the public side, but we don't have many records for what's on the private side. Next slide. Okay, so as the video had shown, how do we know if a service line is material survey is even needed? So there's various ways. You go onto our website, the Service Line Partnership. You click on the yellow button that's on the top there. Next slide, please. It'll take you to a map where you enter your address. That map will zoom to your property. If that property has a blue dot, that means we are looking for the pipe material and requesting a self-survey. So again, as far as how to locate your service line, that's probably the most difficult part of this survey. The survey itself takes 5-7 minutes. To actually locate that service line, what you can do is you look for that water meter, which is usually in your front lawn, possibly in the sidewalk, and just a straight line from that water meter to your property, to your building. And usually the service line will be right there where it goes into your building, either in a crawl space or in a basement. Again, when you go inside your property in your basement, you're looking for this pipe coming from outside through your wall. There's usually some kind of a valve right there, so that's the main shutoff to turn off the water in your house. So you're looking for this pipe with a valve on it, and that's the water line. It's easy to get it somewhat confused with a steam line, or it could be a communications line, but you're always looking for that pipe that has a valve on it. So as the video mentioned, what's needed to complete the survey: a penny to scratch the surface. You're looking for a magnet if you need a flashlight, and then a camera or a phone to take your picture. So again, you just scratch the surface. You're looking to see what color that pipe is. You're putting the magnet on to see if it actually sticks, and then you're tapping on it to see what does that sound. So we have some workstations around the room. One of them in the back there. There's different types of, Beth is over there now. There's different types of pipe material. She can demonstrate for you how the different pipes look or sound when you tap on them. So as you saw in the video, copper pipe is this bronze colored, this yellow, almost dark yellow. Galvanized, the magnet will stick. A lead pipe, it's this silver color. And then plastic pipe, it has this really dull sound when you tap on it. It's pretty easy to distinguish between the different pipe materials. So again, the copper pipe, the color, the magnet doesn't stick. And then when you tap on it, you'll hear this ringing sound like you're hitting a piece of metal. Galvanized, very similar, except the color's gray, and then the magnet's going to stick to the pipe. But again, when you tap on it, you're going to hear this metallic sound. Lead pipe is nice and shiny silver. Again, if you go back there, you'll see it's very shiny. The magnet does not stick, and then it's like any metal pipe. You tap on it, you'll hear this metal sound. Plastic pipe, that is pretty obvious. It's usually a blue in color. The magnet doesn't stick, and then when you tap on it, it's a hollow sound. So you can see here some pictures of the service line coming into or through the wall into the house. Again, that picture on the left-hand side, there's the pipe coming into the wall. There's an elbow going up, and then you can see the valve up on top there. That's the main shutoff valve for the house. Again, you're always looking for that. Every house has a main shelf. So if you see a pipe coming through your wall but doesn't have a valve, it probably is not the water line. So we're asking everyone to take the survey. Again, it only takes a few minutes. There's much more information available, not only in the workstations around here. We have brochures out. You can go onto our website and to get even more information. And we're always here to ask any questions or to answer any questions you may have. With that, Lauren.
So the other thing we want to emphasize is we need your help. That's why we sent out the flyers, that's why we're here, that's why there's outreach for this. We need you to help us so we can help you. We don't know what this material is from your house to the meter. Houses built before a certain date could have lead pipe. It doesn't mean that they do. It just means that it was still allowed by plumbing code, and that's 1973 is the year. So not everybody in the Baltimore City, Baltimore County area is unknown on the private side. If it's a recent build, we know that it wasn't lead pipe because it wasn't allowed anymore by the construction code. Some of the older homes, we do know for some reason, if you had a major renovation or we for some reason have records, but a lot of those records were paper, trying to get them and trying to figure out what pipe is where. We just don't have that information because again, it's on the private side. So the county and the city didn't maintain those records. We know what it is on the public side, but not on the private side. So we're asking for your help to do this survey. We're asking for you to help your friends, help your family, help your neighbors, because the other thing we can do is take this information and extrapolate it. So if we get enough data points in a neighborhood and we know that whole neighborhood was built in the same year by the same builder, we know what's happening in all those houses. And we know not everyone is going to be able to do this or figure out how to do this. So we're looking for those that can to do it so we can help everybody at the end of the day. There's resources in this room. You feel free to ask Paul and I questions while we're up here, but also to go to those booths and ask. They've got a computer over here. They can tell you if your address is one of the unknowns or if it's one of the knowns, and we know what the private side is. We've got another booth straight in the back with samples of all the pipes so you can see what each material would look like. And then we've got another booth with experts at it too that can answer any questions you might have. So I will open the floor to questions for Paul and I. Anybody?
And if you all would go to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
mic so that everyone can hear the question. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nishan. The question that I have is, are there going to be any initiatives to help elderly people who possibly can't get into their basements to check the water lines or aren't computer savvy enough to use the information that you just showed to see if their houses also have lead pipes?
So thank you for the question. So this is just our second public meeting. There are going to be future, not only public meetings, but more in-depth with the various communities in the city, I assume the same in the county as well, where we'll be talking face-to-face with people, possibly helping them at least explain the process, potentially going door-to-door as well. So there will be more communication and collaboration with the property owners.
Okay, my name is Sylvester. I want to know if you've already taken the test. When do you reach back out to the homeowners? Or do you reach back out to them?
Yeah, so right now we've started receiving that information that's being reviewed now. And then when we make a final determination, there's various communications that go on, whether that's an email or maybe it's a call. That we have yet to determine what is the best approach to communicate with our customers.
Okay, and also understand that you say it's the homeowner's responsibility from the meter to the house. If you discover that it is lead, what's the process then?
So that's where we're working on next steps here. So what we've done from people that have submitted, some of them are good results, the pictures are great, they answered it correctly, we know what it is, and it's not lead from what they've answered. Some of them, based on what people have submitted, the picture may not be right, or the information that they answered with the picture don't correlate, so we're going to do further outreach to them to figure out what's really going on there. So next steps from this is we have to know what we don't know. Right now, we don't know. There's, I think, 100,000 unknowns in the city roughly and 100,000 unknowns in the county. That's a lot of unknowns, right? But it doesn't mean that that's lead. It just means we don't know what the material is. We don't have records of it. So we need to narrow that down and find out where it is, if it is anywhere. And it could turn out it's nowhere. The odds are it is somewhere, but not all 200,000 addresses are going to have it at the end of the day. So once we can narrow that down, we can work on programs for replacement, and we can work on funding structures for what that looks like contractor-wise, procurement-wise, what end that happens on, but we can't formulate those plans until we know what the scope of the problem is at this point. But that would be the long-term plan, is replacement of those lead pipes.
But would that be the homeowner's responsibility?
We don't know until we know. So what I will say is there are a lot of federal programs, state programs funding for this. But what we don't know is how exactly all that's going to play out until we know what the scope of the problem is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
This is part of Biden's infrastructure stuff. Is it part of his?
Correct. Well, it's a federal program stemming from the president and the EPA to look at this nationwide, because historically it's only been looked at on the utility-owned side across the country and required that the utilities themselves, in this case Baltimore City, Baltimore County, know the pipes that they own, what material that is. So this program expands it nationwide to look at what the customer owns and what the utility owns.
Okay.
So piggybacking to that, there is funding through the infrastructure plans and the different programs that are out. So that's where that funding would come from, yes.
Yeah, because I was wondering, they saying infrastructure, but they never told the residents what they're going to do, how they're going to give us any kind of reimbursement or whatever. So my house is, I think, 1953 or maybe 1957, the whole area right up on Roundview Road. So my pipe just burst. So they just changed that. But what about inside the house from where that was all over the other, how did you find out what's in there past that?
So the first step is finding out what is that line coming into your house. Because if you think about it, if your house was built in the 50s, my house was built in the 50s, some work has happened in it. Somebody at some point, a pipe may have burst. They may have added a bathroom. They may have, some houses that are even older weren't even built with bathrooms, and somebody added it at some point. That piping is likely not going to be lead, because it's likely going to have happened later, which is why we want people to test right where the service comes into the house. That's why that's important. So you want to find where the pipe first enters your house, which is typically in a basement, maybe a crawl space, maybe your garage, and look at that section of pipe, because that is probably original. Maybe it was replaced, but if that was replaced, odds are everything else was too. So we need to find out what that is and then go from there as to what.
Just the last 6 months I got mine replaced. So
Then plumbing code now, that plumber couldn't use lead pipes. So whatever was replaced.
I can call them and see what they took out
You could, yes.
and see what the other neighbors had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I think there was another question?
Hi, my name is Katora. My name is Katora. So is it possible if we can call 311 for them to come out and do the lead testing for us, especially for those people that are not able to get out and do it themselves?
So at this point, when you call 311, we can provide instructions on how to do it. but actually coming to the house, that we're still working out some of the details on. As I mentioned, some of the community meetings, door-to-door knocking, that will be rolling out shortly.
Okay. And so when is the survey due?
So our inventory is due, as Lauren mentioned, to the MDE, to the state, in October of this year. We're hopeful that we can get through as much of the inventory as we can by summertime, and then to the previous question of between, let's say, summertime and October, that's when we'll have a better idea of how much lead pipe, if any, we're talking about, and then what does that replacement plan look like.
Okay. And so then at the Home Depot, they have a free lead test water kits. So if folks use those test kits, do we still have to complete the survey?
Yes, the survey requires a visual inspection of the pipe and the 2 pictures.
Okay. I think that most of us would be expecting, like if we do have lead in our pipes, for the city to be able to provide some sort of financial support. So I know that a lot of us would like to learn more about that. And then also, is there a deadline date for when the changes or corrections need to be made to the pipes?
Yeah, so those regulations just came out. Right now, it's 13 years.
13 years, okay.
Yeah. I will just add a note as far as the lead pipe, the water chemistry. So there may be lead pipe in our system. That said, we maintain the water chemistry we have for generations now so that it doesn't corrode pipe, much less lead pipe. So having lead pipe is one thing, but the real issue is if it corrodes. And we don't, we maintain that water chemistry, and again, we always have, so that it doesn't corrode.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nika Duckett Randolph. I'm here representing Black Millennials for Flint. And I have a few questions. Some of them are outreach based, some of them are next steps based. I'll start with the, I guess, outreach ones. Do you guys currently have a plan in place for individuals who can't test themselves to provide them assistance? And also, even for people who can and are able-bodied to test themselves, is there any type of plan in place to basically check their work? Just because it doesn't really seem to be, from any research that I've done, industry best practices to have the individuals test themselves. So I'm just curious if you guys are thinking forwardly about those problems, and if at all you guys have, in terms of getting ahead of them.
So those are great questions. There was a long timeline we showed at one point. So we have had a lot of back and forth between the city and the county and our consultants, and trying to mine data that we had to start with to see what do we already know before we have to go out to something like this. We've also been back and forth on how do we go do this. There's nothing in county or city code that let us just go into your house and go into your basement. So we can't just show up door to door and knock and say, we're coming in to do this. So the easiest way at this point is to ask for a customer service survey. And then from there, looking at the people that have called in and the people that have used the survey and we have inconclusive results, to kind of narrow that down and then be able to have individual conversations and say, can we come into your home? Because we don't have something that allows us to just march through your door, which is good for a lot of reasons. You don't need Paul and I just showing up to hang out in your basement. So we're trying to work through what is that pool of where assistance is needed, and then what is that assistance that we're going to provide. Are we going to send consultants? Are we going to send our own staff? How big is that? Can we narrow it down to certain areas and then send out a crew to this area because we seem to have a decent population that doesn't have computers, can't take the online survey, is elderly, needs extra assistance, and then send, this weekend, we're going to have somebody there to do this area. So we're looking at that data to come up with what that plan is. And those conversations are still ongoing because the survey just came out 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So in those 3 weeks, we've gotten a lot of responses, which is great. We've gotten a lot of good responses, and we've gotten some that it doesn't make sense. So we're going to have to do some additional outreach there.
Okay, and then just to reiterate, you guys are having residents test the pipes themselves just because for legal reasons, there's no, I guess, avenue for you guys to come in and do the testing yourselves. So this is kind of how you guys are getting around that.
This is the quickest way to get around it. We have also looked at a couple different programs things that can go into the pipes. There's pluses and minuses to all of that.
Okay.
We've looked at going onto just the meter wells and just, going down right there. There's pluses and minuses to that, and if we can get to the piece of pipe that we need to get to. So narrow that down as much as possible before we get to what that next step is because of the pluses and minuses to going to that next step.
Okay, and then in terms of outreach, I know you guys have talked about future outreach plans. I'm somebody who, works in organizing, so I'm very familiar with all of the back planning and, forework that needs to be done for outreach. So I'm just curious about you guys' outreach plans. Have you looked at any maybe historical maps or used any historical data to kind of identify where you guys should be targeting your outreach or anything like that, maybe along some of the previous lead work that's been done in the city? Has that been you guys' focus at all?
So right now, the focus is on everyone. We have researched all of the documents, plumbing codes, and gathered what information we could. So what's left is what you see like on our maps. Those are the properties where we don't know. And we've researched the documents, all the documents that are made available.
Yeah, to be a little bit more specific, I'm thinking more so historical. Think like the redlining, the Black Butterfly neighborhoods. We do know that there is socioeconomic factors that impact and influence neighborhoods and the resources that they do or don't have. And we also do know all too well, right, the factors that play in Baltimore City. So there are some neighborhoods that we just do already have a ton of information about lead poisoning and exposure there. So I'm curious if you guys have consulted any of that information or databases, and if you guys are planning, with any of that information for your outreach.
Yeah, so I'll say maybe in general, we take that into account for any program or project that we do. Certainly, this is another example of where we would be taking some of that information into account as we go through the public outreach program.
Okay, and then my last and final question about outreach is just talk to me a little bit about your methodology. Are you guys going to be reaching out to people on the phones, on social media? Are you knocking door to door? Like, what's the strategy? Are you going to be doing ads or something like that? Because I do know from working in outreach that you've got to get these messages out multiple times for people to hear you and even open the door. So I'm just really curious about what you guys' plan is, to actually be able to get in the door once you are actually at the homes.
Yeah, so there's been multiple channels used even for this event here. So whether it's radio advertisements, we already do social media. As I mentioned before, we are finalizing our plans for more community-based outreach, person to person. And it may include also knocking on doors. So we do have a plan. This is the first rollout of that plan.
Okay.
I would like to say just one last thing about the self-survey and why we're doing it. Early on in the program, we made a intentional decision to minimize intrusiveness on private property. If we wanted to really identify pipe material, the best way would be to excavate a little hole, expose the pipe, and then look. But that means someone's on your property digging up a hole. So we wanted to avoid that at all costs, not only because of cost, but for the nuisance to the property owner. That's why we're heavily reliant on the self-survey and why we're hoping to get high participation so we do not have to go to those extremes.
Okay, so if you don't get high participation on the self-survey, you would have to do that anyways.
As Lauren mentioned, there are other technologies, but that may be one alternative, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I did want to chime in on a couple other points too for the things that you asked. At the end of the day, the federal government and the state want us to identify all of the unknowns, everything that's not known of those roughly 200,000 data points. We can do some extrapolation initially if we meet a certain percentage in each area. So when you're asking about areas like historically redlined areas, we have to hit a certain percentage of verifying what it is. So if that means people answer the survey, but if nobody in that area answers the survey, we have to go to another level in that area in particular. So to make sure we get everybody. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is the mailers that people got, the postcard, that only went to unknown addresses.
Okay.
That didn't go to everybody in the metropolitan water system. So if you got one of those postcards in the mail, we don't know what you are, which is likely we also don't know what your neighbor is. So if theirs got lost in the mail, if you share it with them too to do this, that helps.
Okay. And I wanted to reiterate, my questions were mostly equity focused and not like me saying that you should only be looking in one area. I was just curious where equity was fitting into you guys' plans, if you guys were maybe prioritizing or starting with the historically redlined and neglected communities first, or if, you know, everybody was just going to be serviced at the same time.
So that's also part of the mapping that we did so far. So we didn't just roll it out and say, here, everybody in the system do this. I can't say what all other jurisdictions have done. So every jurisdiction in the country that has a water system is doing a program like this right now. So we made the conscious decision to narrow it down as much as we could with what records we had so we could be targeted in our approach. Likely those areas are older home stock because that is where it was allowed and likely where we wouldn't have records of what it is.
I just had this question, so sorry for coming up with it, but I'm just curious, are you guys tracking this data and keeping it?
Yep, that's part of the requirement.
Okay,
that is
great.
the federal requirement, is that we have a database with this information in it, and it's public.
Okay.
It's public facing, where these blue dots are, you can search anybody's address and see what's going on.
Are you guys also tracking socioeconomic factors related to this data or no?
You're talking about when we get the results.
Yeah.
So that's not a requirement, but that is something that we're looking at as part of our ongoing
Yeah.
equity programs that we have in place now.
Yeah. I was just going to make the suggestion, if you guys aren't collecting it, you should, because it helps. It helps to cross-reference for patterns.
We definitely are.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? And remember, we've still got the tables. If you have a question that you don't want to come to the mic for, you want to ask somebody individually, you're welcome to approach the tables. Yes, ma'am.
They have homeowners or renters or whatever, they have like home service. Baltimore City has it. I have it with Home Serve. Can you probably get them to help with the contract and add into their contract to test it, help test, so people with these contracts can...
So right now, the home serve contracts are meant primarily for the backups and the water main leaks. There's no scope in there to do this kind of
I'm
testing.
saying, can you probably generate it, with different cities or whatever, try to incorporate that for maybe a little fee for them to help y'all out?
That's a good thought. Something for us to keep in mind.
I mean,
Thank
it's too many people that don't even know about this, so.
Understood.
I mean, you got companies that's taking money from people for nothing for years, so.
Thank you.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm from Chum. I wanted to know, how would you know if you can't remember if you got a postcard? Because it could have been in junk mail. Knowing me, junk mail is shredded. Okay, so I wouldn't know. Would you say something about the dots?
We've got a table right here with laptops, and you can walk up to it and give them your address, and they can tell you if you're unknown.
And another question is, everyone is talking about if someone is unavailable, what about a disabled person or an elderly person is not going to try to do what you're asking to be done? Is it something that can be done, like how they have senior centers or something, that someone can appoint someone to help service those seniors to do what it is you're asking to be done?
Yes. So again, that's part of the continued rollout of our public outreach. Those are things that we're in the middle of a discussion about. What other types of assistance we can provide beyond just a public meeting and other forums, whether it's door knocking and then explaining what needs to be done, is actually going and doing those tests on behalf of the customer. Those are in discussions now.
I have one last thought. If DPW can come to your house and take off the connection when you have a drain issue. How difficult would it be, or could it be, if they take that same lid off and run the light in your through your pipes to whatever the area you're talking about, because they run the light in order to find out what the issue is when you have a backup?
Yeah, so when we do those basin backup or sanitary overflow inspections, that's from the outside at our manholes. So it can be done at the meter box, like I showed in some previous slides. Right now, the state regulations only allow for us to do that for the public side. They don't allow us to do it for the private side. So there are crews out now who are doing inspections at those meter valves, and they are determining what is the pipe material on the public side. But that's a state requirement that you cannot do it for the public. I'm sorry, for the private.
I have a question. Hello, my name is Michelle. And my basic question is, what prompted this? For years and years and years, it's been known that the city has tons and tons of lead pipes in our schools, that like back in the 80s or 90s, they had stopped everybody from drinking water. So if that's what prompted this, because in my head, it has to be something similar, because if they stop drinking water fountains in schools, it's the same pipes coming from the outside into our homes. So then what prompted this whole lead pipe discovery to see what's going on in your house is what I want to know. Yeah,
so I think, as Lorna mentioned at the beginning, this is really this is a federal requirement that came out back a couple years ago. So the requirement of identifying the lead pipe and putting an inventory together and the replacement plan, those are all federal mandates for every water system in the country. And for that program, it really is a time for us to reset on where are there lead pipe, if any, in the system, whether it's at a school, at someone's home. It's really an opportunity for us to try and ensure that lead pipe is removed from our system. But it is a federal mandate.
Yeah, I do understand that it is now a federal mandate. What I'm saying, just like Flint, Michigan, everybody knows what happened at Flint, Michigan. The water was diverted, and then things of that nature. So then years and years and years later, then it comes up, oh, okay, the water was contaminated or something of that nature. So I'm like, something had to prompt this federal mandate across all states is what I'm just trying to figure out.
So I do want to clarify the major difference between what happened in Flint, Michigan and what this program is. So as you mentioned, the water was diverted. So there was a different water chemistry that was happening, and that corroded the pipes there and released lead into the pipes. That is not the case here at all. There has not been a change to the water chemistry. We are just asking people to identify if there is lead pipes at this point. So there's no evidence on the city side, county side, water treatment side, that there is an active issue between the water chemistry and lead pipes if they exist in the system. We're being proactive in that respect and looking to identify them, even though there is not a problem here. Is there a problem someplace else in the country? I'm not sure. I can't speak to why EPA came out with these rules. Did something happen somewhere else? That would be a question for the federal government. Why now?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Hi, Natalie Exum here from Johns Hopkins University, from the Department of Environmental Health and Engineering. And I just wanted to ask, more of a question or answer from the national perspective, as not, I don't work for DPW, but just know a lot about the issue. I love your question. And I actually think it's important that we recognize this is a national conversation. We're having this conversation about Baltimore right now, but this is part of a national conversation and movement that, we're having a moment in our country where we're finally beginning to deal with lead in our drinking water, in our food, in our paint, in our homes. And so there's a lot of infrastructure money now to do something about this on a national level. And so we're seeing the federal government propose really public health protective measures to begin to do something about this problem. And so what we're seeing now is on a local level, money is coming down and a new program is coming down, and the lead level is being proposed to be taken down from 15 to 10, and these utilities are now having to do a lot more work than they had to do. So this is all good stuff, and we really need the community now to be the ones who are asking the right questions and having this important dialogue. So just to provide that national perspective here, because it is such an exciting time to really do something for public health.
Any other questions? If not, thank you all. Thank you, viewers online, for this. We appreciate the questions. It'll help us tune our public outreach in the future. Feel free to stop by any of the booths and ask more detailed questions. Thank you for coming out tonight.